It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
A study just came out showing that most Americans don't earn enough to afford basic costs of living. Yes, 60% of Americans can't afford living, which last I checked is one of Americans' favorite things to do. And considering many Americans spend a third of their hours at their hated wage slave jobs, a third sleeping, and a third doing things like cooking, shitting, driving children to school, that means most Americans have a whopping 7 minutes a week left over for living, which often consists of hate-binging TikTok videos. This new analysis measured the Minimal Quality of Life Index, which offers a more comprehensive measure of the cost of living than traditional metrics. What does that mean? Well, it takes the traditional true living cost, which only includes things like housing, food, and healthcare, but then it adds on some other meaningless things like education, transportation, and technology. Education? Poor children don't need education. To do what? Learn how to play with their only toy, the wooden paddle with the ball attached by a rubber band? Come on. And technology? Why do poor people need that? Their version of a smartphone is a wooden paddle with a ball attached by a rubber band. Okay, maybe all people in one of the richest countries in the world should be able to afford things like education and transportation. I'll grant that, even though I don't understand why they can't get to work riding on a skateboard tied to the back of an unsuspecting car by a rubber band. The chairman of the organization that did the study said about the results, it's really dangerous because it's the kind of thing that leads to social unrest, and it's not fair. The American dream is not that it's given to you. It's that if you work hard, you have a chance to get ahead and achieve the things in life that you want to achieve. It's not living in a tent, not having to steal. First of all, as the great prophet George Carlin once said, it's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. Luckily, we have Ambien nowadays, so many Americans can enjoy that dream more often. Secondly, stealing is what this country is all about. The richest people in the world lied, cheated, and stole to get where they are. Bill Gates bought and stole his ideas. Steve Jobs bought and stole his ideas. Facebook, Meta, bought and stole their ideas. Elon Musk bought and stole his ideas. Donald Trump has publicly announced plans to either buy or steal Greenland, the Panama Canal, the Gulf of Mexico, Gaza, and the love of his children. So don't tell me the American dream isn't about stealing. But I agree with you about living in a tent. That's no good. That kind of sucks. Unless you're glamping. Living in a tent for 2 days, that's an exotic retreat that an investment banker will pay 10 grand for. Living in a tent for 2 months, it's free, but it's not nearly as sought after. So this study shows that things are very rough for most of us. And while the U.S. government claims the unemployment rate is 4.2%, that's not, how do I put this, true. Factoring in workers who are stuck in poverty wage jobs and people who are unable to find full-time employment, the U.S. jobless rate now tops 24%. Okay, but 4% is only like 600% off from the truth, which for Donald Trump, that's roughly 3,000% more truthful than he normally is. And I've heard from a lot of very tan and orange people on TV news shows that the economy is actually doing quite well. Traditional headline economic indicators like GDP and unemployment tell us the economy is thriving, but they don't reflect the lived reality of most Americans. Who told you you get to have a good lived reality? All that matters is what reality looks like, not how it's lived. Trump says best economy ever. Then that's what it is. Done. Conversely, when Trump or our media says we have to give police more money than ever because crime is higher than ever, that's what it is. Sure, the lived reality is that street crime is mostly at an all-time low, but lived reality doesn't matter. Fake reality is where we live now. Do you see? Do you get it? The fantasy world is now materiality. And the material world is now like a byproduct. At best, the fake world and the lived world are indecipherable until such time as a man buys Magnum condoms, then gets them home and realizes he needs to invite over 3 friends to actually have a hope of wearing the thing. Anyway, a big part of the reason Americans are struggling is because from 2001 to 2023, the cost of affording what amounts to a basic level of economic security doubled. Meanwhile, median earnings for the bottom 60% of income earners fell 4% over that span when adjusting for the cost of goods. So costs shooting up, earnings for the bottom 60% going down, rich getting richer, poor getting poorer, a government working to make sure the social safety net has less to it than a Bianca Censori outfit. Where will this take us? A study in the Journal of Law and Economics showed strong evidence that more people are found to have a preference for revolt when inequality in their nation is high. A 1 standard deviation increase in the Gini coefficient explains up to 38% of the standard deviation in revolutionary support. The Gini coefficient, as everyone knows, named after Gene Simmons, measures the length of your tongue divided by how much of a total asshole you are. What's that? Oh, sorry, I misspoke. The Gini coefficient measures the level of inequality in a country. Could have sworn it was the tongue thing. In recent years, the Gini index for household income in the United States was 0.47. Well, that's not that bad. In ancient Rome, before their collapse, it was a whopping 0.43. Oh, that's lower. That's lower. Well, that's not what really matters, okay? If you want to look at inequality, it really has to do with how much the top 1% have. Before the collapse of the Roman Empire, the top 1% of the population controlled over 16% of its wealth. 16%! That's bananas! That's catastrophic! That's unhinged! We're nowhere near that. As of 2023, the top 1% of American households owned 30% of net worth. Ooh, so almost double the level of inequality in ancient Rome. Well, I guess we know what comes next then. But I can't afford a guillotine. Have you seen the prices lately? They're crazy. I've got it. A tool share in which we all chip in a little bit of money to create a tool library that we can then all use whenever we want. It would include things like guillotines, pitchforks, bottles stuffed with gasoline rags, 2x4s with a bunch of pointy nails sticking out at all weird angles. The basics. Make sure you wash them before you bring them back, by the way. Guess what I'm saying is socialism to bring down capitalism. Didn't think we'd end up there. Oh, hope this show's not canceled next week. Can we lock the doors? Gary, can you lock the doors?